Hi, my name is Mike Heiner from Strategic Asset Protection, and in today's video I wanted to talk to you about the differences between having a basic will structure and a trust planning structure. But first of all, I think it's really important to understand that 70% of the UK population have got no planning whatsoever, which means 30% of the population actually do have a plan. And of that 30%, the majority of them will have a basic will structure. Now there's problems and limitations to this basic will structure, and it's the main reason why you end up losing assets out of your estate through divorces and creditor claims and care fees and so on and so on. The reason being that if Mr. passes away, the way that the basic structure works is that on first death, when Mr. passes away, all the assets will pass to Mrs. 100%. And then the hope is that after Mrs. passes away, everything passes on down to the children. That is a basic will structure. First death, everything to the wife. Second death, everything down to the children. But there's issues with this. First of all, when Mr. passes away and all the assets come across to Mrs., because she now owns all the assets 100%, if later on she needs to go into care, there's a very strong possibility that you're going to start losing some assets here to pay for that care. Also, there's another risk here, that you could be disinheriting your children altogether. Reason being that is if Mrs., once she's inherited all the assets, finds Mr. New and then remarries, she's going to take with her all the assets that she inherited into the new marriage. Now let's say they set up a simple basic will at this point, and then Mrs. passes away. Well, then all the assets that she brought into the new marriage will now pass over to Mr. New. And at that point, there's a very strong possibility that the children won't inherit at all, because everything will ultimately go down his line as opposed to her line. Now, we can stop all that and ensure that assets are protected. And the way that we do that is by setting up a trust structure. The first thing that we do when we look to set up a trust structure is to segregate the estate, separate the estate, divide it up. So what we've got is we've got 50% on Mrs. side, 50% on Mr.'s side. So what that then means is that when Mr. passes away, through his will, he will distribute his assets, not directly to his wife as he does through a basic will, but into a trust, which then gives it the protection. Now the wife would be a trustee and a beneficiary of the trust, so she can use some of the assets, but she doesn't have ownership of the assets. The same with the children. The children would be named as potential beneficiaries and potential trustees later on as well. But what we've in essence done at this point is we've protected half of the value of the estate from the creditor claims, from the care fees and so on. So because Mrs. doesn't actually own this half, the trust owns this half. And we've also stopped this half from being lost through a potential future marriage on this side if Mrs. decides to remarry. All the assets on Mr.'s side will go ultimately to whom he wished they to go to in the first place, i.e. his wife and his children, but not to anybody else. I hope that's been of interest.